10 minutes, we'll talk about that controversial call in the Duke-UCF game. I said UFC earlier. That's obviously not UCF, Central Florida. And there was a no call on a push. And fans make this mistake a lot, and the media makes this mistake. Sports are not officiated the exact same way late in games. Just like they're not coached the same way. Just like rules change late in games. They did not call a push because refs swallow their whistle in close, big games late, always. Ever noticed in the NFL, on a Hail Mary, they never call pass interference, even though everybody's grabbing and pushing? You ever noticed in soccer, you very rarely, with a minute and a half, 2 minutes left, see a penalty kick? Because refs don't want to call it unless it's egregious. In hockey, you go to overtime. Refs want it fully manned. They don't want to, unless it's egregious. A hockey ref is not going to take a guy off the ice. But calling games should be officiated the same way. Why? They're not played the same early as late. They're not coached the same early as late. There are rules that change. You have a 2-minute warning late, not early. In overtime, college or pro football, the rules all changed. By the way, in the NBA, if you call a timeout late in games, they take the ball and they move it to the other end of the floor. They don't do that in the first quarter, the second quarter, and the third quarter. Why do they do it at the end of a game? To make the game more competitive. You also can't do hack-a-shack in the NBA late in games anymore. There's all sorts of rules in place telling you that games are different late. Football, basketball, baseball, you can't do a challenge in baseball after the 7th inning. You can't do a challenge in football under the 2-minute warning. So the rules change late in games. Officials also officiate differently. They get out of the way. Remember Christmas Day last year, LeBron and Kevin Durant? And LeBron claimed he was fouled twice. When you have LeBron and Kevin Durant, the two biggest stars in the NBA, going to the basket late, LeBron claimed he was fouled twice. They swallowed the whistle. By the way, several years ago in the finals, LeBron fouled Kevin Durant going on the baseline. They swallowed their whistle there. Go ask New Orleans Saints fans. Referees will allow aggressive play late. They always have and they always will. They don't want to get in the way of an outcome. But Colin, they should. No, they shouldn't. Rules change late. Overtime rules are not the same as regular rules. NBA, they advance the ball. NFL, you can't challenge. Baseball, you can't challenge. Hockey, they won't call anything in overtime. That's the way it should work in sports. You don't drive to work going the same speed limit. There's the freeway. There's off-roads. There's side roads. There's school zones. This idea, you just officiate, same rules, not the great ones. They get it. Officials do not want to be in the newspaper the following morning having called a foul that wasn't a foul. They're much better off not calling anything, disappearing, and letting them play. Okay, I know it makes you mad. You don't want to hear it, but every time people are furious at officiating, almost always, it's because something that wasn't called, not something that was. And did I think it was a push? A lot of pushing in basketball. But I didn't think they were going to call that. I don't think you decide a game that way. By the way, UCF had a chance for an alley-oop dunk, blew it. Duke came down, hit a shot. It was a 5-point swing, 4 or 5-point swing. That's your game. That's not your game. That missed jam at the other end was the game. Rules change. Coaches coach differently. They substitute differently. You can't hack-a-shack late. They move the ball in basketball down the floor late. They don't do it early. That's sports. Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
So the Lakers were officially eliminated from the playoffs this weekend after their loss to the Nets.
Yep.
It's the first time LeBron has missed the playoffs in 14 years. And while LeBron is taking a lot of the blame for the Lakers' woes this year, his physical therapist, who worked with him during his groin injury, is coming to his defense. Dr. Karen Jobert wrote on Instagram, "I want you all to know how bad his injury was and is, the pain he endured. He was on the court in 6 weeks. It should have been 6 months. Unselfishly, he endured pain. He did not want to let the Lakers down, the fans down, but I know what he went through. I learned about determination, the will to win, how to get the job done. He is a force to be reckoned with." It was a picture of her and LeBron in what looks like the physical therapist's office. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Physical training room with the Lakers. She's since deleted this, of course, It's kind of interesting timing considering that they had just been eliminated from the playoffs. But I also don't know who this helps. I obviously don't think that the Lakers loved having this up because it's not really a good look for them if he should have been out 6 months and he was out there playing in 6 weeks. But it's also not a great look for LeBron either because, of course, you can't just post information about a patient's injury on the internet. So someone had to approve this post, you're assuming. And then also, it's like, if you really had to be out 6 months, what are you doing out there? This is not the point of your career where you need to push through an injury during the middle of a regular season.
It's another moment with LeBron where bad things are happening on the court and he races to Instagram to save his brand or elevate his individual accomplishments. I've felt this year it's been a bad year of kind of marketing and branding for LeBron. Everybody looks at his pizza chain and his TV shows. But like 4 times this year, you and I think we've agreed on these, there's been like us, and he races to Instagram to say, I blocked a shot. And it's like, you know what LeBron should do when the season ends? Like recalibrate. Take a month off, do what you want to do, go see a therapist, kumbaya, a guru. Get back into the team thing. I just feel like this year's been all about LeBron. And I get LA's very much a, celebrity town. But it's almost like Cleveland and Akron kept LeBron in check. Like he felt like he was part of a community and a fabric.
I think that at least in Cleveland, there was the feeling that if he doesn't do it, literally no one will. And it was this idea with the Lakers where he's going to get another star. We just know it. And everything's just going to work out. We just know it. And the basketball gods are just going to give this to us. And it didn't. And it was issue after issue, injury after injury. And this is just another example to me. Like, I don't get this. It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help LeBron because if you're really that injured, there's no reason you should be out there. If it's a 6-month injury, there's no reason you should be out there in 6 weeks. And it doesn't help the Lakers at all. So it's just one more thing. And it's like, okay, like this year is done. We know there was a lot of issues.
Stay off Instagram.
Let's just all kind of ride off into the sunset of the summer and allow us all to clear the air. So after blowing an 18-point lead in the fourth quarter of Saturday's loss in Charlotte, the Celtics were blown out on their home floor last night against the Spurs. Kyrie was seen sitting away from the team during timeouts and walked to the locker room with 20 seconds left in the fourth quarter. And after the game, Kyrie was asked about his leadership.
Winning's hard. Team environments are hard. It's not as simple as just listening to everybody else speak about what's going on. It's hard being a professional athlete, being in a team environment and wanting to accomplish something very great. Everyone always going to say, oh, they need to do this, they need to do that. Nobody's been in my position. Nobody here. So I don't expect anybody here to understand that. Everybody could just speak on it. My focus is figuring out, the guys I have in this locker room, how to get the best out of them and them to get the best out of me.
Celtics have lost 4 in a row and 5 of their last 10.
It's just been
not exactly the way you want to be rolling into the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of the Celtics. When they're playing great, it's like no worries. We're like, these are the Celtics we expected. And then when they're down, it feels
on their good nights,
impossible.
They're really good. Like when you watch them on their good nights, when Kyrie's hot and they're playing, and then Hayward's, they go into Golden State, box them, and it's like, but they are wildly inconsistent. Like I always feel like certain teams, like the Raptors, Denver, you kind of get the same team every night.
Right.
With Boston, you get Golden State and Boston. I get wild versions.
They're just emotionally volatile.
Yes, they are.
And I don't understand it. I do think that Kyrie is still learning how to be that number one guy,
right.
And he's still adjusting to that. And maybe they do have some chemistry issues with style of play with Kyrie and Gordon Hayward, and it's not all just as simple as everybody just getting along. But it's just not the way you want to be going to the playoffs.
If you're great at anything, it is harder to move into a team concept. I mean, when Deion Sanders didn't want to tackle. Deion's like, I'll cover your best receiver. I'm not into the tackling thing. When you're great, it is harder to fit because you have no limitations, sometimes into a coach's system. And I think Kyrie's a 20-something-year-old kid, and he struggled a little with it. It's not the end of the world. He's not a bad guy. And I also think he said something that's true. Leadership's hard. I mean, I've seen politicians in their 40s that can't lead. It is possible for a 27-year-old kid to still be maturing and figuring out how to lead. That's real. That's very human. That's very normal.
Sure. I will say, though, basketball has always been a team sport. So if you're great at basketball, you've always literally been in the environment where you're playing with other people. So I do get it. He's still developing and figuring it all out. I think it's more on the court, actual system issues that are preventing the Celtics from being consistent.
So do I.
But again, want to get together before the playoffs. And finally, congratulations to everyone who picked the most boring bracket in your pool. For the first time since the tournament expanded to 64 teams in 1985, all 16 betting favorites won in the round of 32 3 times. In 2009, 95, and 91, the favorite team had won 15 of 16 games in the round of 32. But this was the first year in which the Chalk went undefeated. And a lot of the favorites won in blowout fashion, too. Duke was the closest call, and they were the consensus
I'm a
favorite.
chalk guy, so I always go all chalk. I'll pick one upset 5-12, so my bracket's in great shape.
My bracket's not in great shape, but I went with a lot of the favorites, too. I just think that the disparity in talent is
you know
too
what? Throughout the course of the year, I made a prediction on the championship game, which is now not possible because of seeding, but do you remember what that game was?
It was Duke and
Big Ten team. Michigan. Yeah, so all year long I kept saying Duke, Michigan are going to play in the championship. One has the best talent, one has the best in-game coach, and I still believe that, but they can't now. Now they'll meet on one side of the bracket. They won't be in the championship. But the two teams I feel best about this morning are Duke, Michigan, and then I really like North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, I have Duke and North Carolina in the championship game.
Yeah, that's probably a good pick. North Carolina's really good.
Very edgy.
They got a great combination of NBA guys and really good college players who aren't NBA guys who have been there.
I think you still get credit for that, though. You can't help the seedings.
Yeah, you're right. I should get humongous credit for that. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for